Alright, let's take this opportunity to develop an understanding of the relationship between cities and the land that they work. Let's go ahead and take a look at Penguinica. Now, we know that this city has 2 citizens by looking at the number by the city here, or the 2 little icons at the top left. And we've touched on before how when you see the numbers highlighted over a tile, that those represent those citizens working that tile. Your city will only bring in resources that citizens are currently working. You can have the best land around a city, but the city doesn't reap the benefits of those particular tiles until somebody is actually working it. So the city will always work itself. The tile that it's on, that does not represent a citizen, but that tile is being worked by the city. So our 2 citizens are here on the fish and in the forest over here. So what are these 3 numbers? The green number represents the food that they're bringing in. The white represents production, and the gold represents trade. So we can now look down here and we now understand where we are getting these gross values from. All we have to do is go and add it up. Food. Okay, we're getting 2 here, and 1 here. There's our 5 food. Production's a little tricky in the capital, because if we add them up, we'll see we are getting 3 production. But for some reason, we have a gross of 5 over here. If you're ever confused about something, just go ahead and left-click and hold on the net. And what this tells us is it says, okay, well, we're getting 3 from our citizens, and that's what we counted. And plus 2 bonus from despotism and palace and shield. That's a convoluted way of saying that your capital gets a 75% boost in production. So that's where that comes from. Now, we already went over food and how each citizen takes 2 and each supported settler takes 1 food. And production, we'll go over what can cause your net production to drop later. And then your trade is affected by, the only thing that's really affected by is corruption, which in your starting government, despotism. The farther away a city is from the capital, the more corruption it suffers from, and it's just a drain on your trade. And we can see our corruption down here. So one nice thing that we can do is that if we're curious about a tile, we can hold down the Alt button and left click and hold on a tile. And it will tell us what type it is, and it will tell us how much food, production, and trade it gives us. So we can see that this is a plains tile, and it gives us 1 food, 1 production, and 0 trade. And what about this one with the fish? Okay, it says terrain, ocean, in parentheses fish, because it's an ocean tile, but it has the special resource on it, fish. We see that that gives us 3 food, minus 1, I'll explain that in a second, 0 production, and 2 trade. The reason it says minus 1 is that the type of government that we're in, despotism is a very ineffective form of government. Any tile that gives more than 2 in anything, more than 2 food, more than 2 production or trade, automatically gets a minus 1. So a tile with 3 food is treated the same as a tile with 2 food, because the moment it hits 3, it gets minus 1. That's one of the reasons you want to get out of despotism as quick as possible and onto a better form of government. So let's look at this over here. Let's look at this grassland tile. Okay, it's grassland. It gives 2 food, 0 production, and 0 trade. Well, what if we look at the one with the road built on it here? 2 food, 0 production, and 1 trade. Not only do roads let you move 3 times farther on them, but they also add 1 trade to all flatland tiles, such as plains, grasslands, and deserts. Okay, well, what about this one with the river on it? Same thing. It has 1 additional trade. And that's because rivers act very similarly to roads. They give +1 trade, and they also triple your move speed along them. So if you're wondering where can you get a complete list of all the terrain types and exhaustive information about them, right here in the help menu. The help here is much better than it is in other pieces of software. So we come down to terrain, come over to the left here and click on the little arrow. Here we are. So let's go ahead and look at, how about plains? Or let's look at forest, actually. And what it says here is it will tell us how many move points it costs to move through it. So it takes 6 to move through it. So that's why units immediately run out of move points when they move into it. You can see it gives 1 food. This game, it's really confusing. Resources, it uses the terms resources and production interchangeably, so don't be tripped up by that, but it gives 1 food, 2 production or resources, and 0 trade. However, forest can have, it's possible that there's a pheasant on it or silk. If there's a pheasant on it, it becomes 3 food, 2 production, 0 trade. And silk is 1 food, 2 production, 3 trade. So those are possible resources that can be on it. And then it will tell us if we want to irrigate it, what the result is, and how long that will take. The result of telling it to irrigate a forest will be that the forest is ripped up and it's converted into plains, and that will take 5 move points. Or we can mine it, the result will be a swamp, and it will take 15 move points. So you'll have to sit there through 15 move points. And since you get 3 move points a turn, that means to turn it into a swamp would take 5 turns. Now there's the question of roads. Like, well, we can build a road. Why doesn't it list that here? It lists that down here under terrain alterations. We can click on road, and this will give us information about what type of terrain, how many turns it will take, and this is in move points. So imagine that you're putting 3 points against this every turn. So plains will be done in 1 turn, tundra in 1 turn, grassland in 1 turn, desert in 1 turn, and it says what the bonus will be here. Food, and these stand for food production and trade. So you can see that only these 3 tiles get, while they all will get the move bonus, it will triple movement. It'll take only 1/3 of a move point to move across any tile with a road on it. Only deserts, grasslands, and plains will get +1 trade from having it on there. So that is if we're curious about a tile, we can alt-click on it, and it will give us information about it. If we want to look at an exhaustive list of all of them, we can check the manual. And that kind of sums it up. So with understanding the different resources on tiles, we can now look and see what the potential is. And if we look at a city and we say, good example here, like Penguinica, well, why am I so short on food right now? Well, I can look and add up the tiles. Or this is probably a really good example. I only have one guy here, and there's not much of a surplus. Well, the city was built on a forest, and so that only gives 1 food. And if I had built that over here on the plains with 2 food, well, the plains actually give 1 food, but once you irrigate it, which cities automatically irrigate the tile that they're built on, that just doesn't help forests. Irrigation doesn't do anything. We'll cover irrigation in a little bit. But if I had built it over on this tile, which by default has 2, but the city will make it 3, then there would be a lot more food here, and the city would be growing faster. So there's consequences to where you build cities. You want to make sure you build them where you have as much food, production, and trade as possible. Well, I think that wraps it up for now. We will go ahead and finish the turn, start the next one on the next video.